even more before us, where we did not have mentors, we did not have people who were so readily available to actually share their experiences with people down the line. So we had to fight our way. We had to learn everything from scratch. We had to actually develop our skills on the road while fighting the whole terrain. So it was really hands on, as they say. So when we got into these large organizations, we found ourselves slightly lost at sea, as they say. But then, once we started negotiating the waves and the breakers and the turbulence, we found our way and we found the solutions to every problem which was being thrown to us. But that probably was something which could have been curtailed or cut short had we had the benefit of either professionals or experts like us coming and speaking to you about these areas, or at least these kind of seminars and webinars which are being organized regularly in order to bring that knowledge to today's youngsters. We did not have the benefit of that. As a result, we took more time in getting our feet well implanted into our jobs. We had to learn all the ropes, okay, while also trying to perform at our respective organizations. Just to be able to put a perspective to it, I think I will start by sharing a very small presentation that I've made for this purpose, because without making it too technical, we still need to create a construct. We still need to understand how to really put that entire performer of guiding you towards your career progression or towards your professional development. And with that in view, I've created a small presentation, and I would certainly want your attention to that presentation. I'm going to be sharing that particular slide. Just please give me a moment. Is the slide available? Is it visible?
Yes,
Can
ma'am. I can see.
Okay, so it reads career and professional development, and I hope all of you are able to see it. Okay, good. Good. So let's carry on from here and let's understand, what does this particular term, career and professional development, really mean? Okay, so when we talk about career and professional growth or development, as we call it, professional growth or development is all about gaining new skills and experience. So, what are we talking about here? We are talking about honing your skills or developing your competencies and your personality in a very, very professional manner, which goes beyond just the academic curriculum that you would have gone through. Put it simply, each one of you are either studying or would have completed your courses from engineering colleges, from management colleges, or from even generic schools. So, some of you would be engineers, some of you would be management graduates, some of you could even be pass outs from regular streams. And all of you would be looking towards moving into respective fields of work from here onwards. But is it just that academic knowledge that you've gained in the colleges? Is that just enough for you to be able to get the right and the aspired job for yourselves? Because many of you would obviously have dreams of working for the large organizations, which have big brands, which have a lovely place to work in, and especially in the current environment where we find that there are so many restrictions after the pandemic or the COVID-19 has come in. There are so many restrictions about the ways that we work. It becomes even more critical for us to understand that we need to skill ourselves in such a manner. We need to create that professional edge to us in such a manner so that in a market situation where the supply is very large and the demand is actually less, at least you will stand out from amongst the group of people, and the spotlight would be on you when the large organizations come to actually pick for themselves. So professional growth or development is all about gaining new skills and experience. Development is either related to one's current role or the role that one wants to do. So we are talking about a current role. So your current role may be that you're a student who's just coming out from a business school or an engineering school and wanting to get into a corporate. You may have already had your placement, so you're obviously at the cusp of entering into the jobs, and you would start off working very soon. And some of you could actually be in that role or in that situation where you're still, looking for an opportunity for yourself. So even when it comes to your current role, which is either you are at the threshold of moving into a job or you're still looking for a job, development is something which does not, go away. It is something which is meant to be there irrespective of which phase of life you are going through. For instance, a lot of youngsters, I told you at the start of this particular session that, I mentor a lot of students in different colleges. They reach out to me over LinkedIn, they come across me, I meet them in a lot of seminars, and after we speak and after we discuss, many of them become my co-mates, and we keep talking and we keep generating solutions together. It's a fantastic opportunity for both the parties to actually look at creating more meaning. So as a result, many of them reached out to me to say that during this pandemic period, neither were their internships developing, nor were they actually being respected. So a lot of companies which had given internship offers to many of my young friends did not really respect them anymore, and those internships did not fall in place. As a result, many of them had to spend the entire last 2 to 3 months, which ideally would have gone into internship projects, okay, sitting at home, okay, trying to negotiate webinars, trying to understand how they can put this time to their best use, and just be cut off from the rest of the world in the way it used to be earlier. Now, one of the things that I always told them is this period is a lucky one for us. It is a godsend, because every year it used to be a routine kind of situation where this period was earmarked by students going in for their internships, whether it was engineering or whether it was management or whether it was even the plain vanilla fields. But this time, because of the pandemic, we had been forced to stay indoors. We had been forced to work out of home, many of us, and as a result of which, we had a lot of time in our hand, A, to create the work life balance that we always seem to be talking about, but is not able to make anything out of it. And secondly, also to understand that how best to utilize this particular period of 2 to 3 months in developing your personality even further. So, development is something which does not end at any phase of life. Whether you are continuing to study, whether you are moving into a job, or whether you are sitting at home because of a pandemic out there, development is something which still needed to continue with the rest of the family so that one could make the best use of the situation. And that is what career and professional growth or development is all about. We move on to the next very important idea is that what are the areas of development? When we talk about the human being and we talk about the various aspects of life that we have to move through, the different kind of influences that we have to negotiate when we move into the corporate or into the professional arena, there are 5 areas of development, which is basically a holistic approach to learning that strives to break down the silos in education and ensure. So, whatever you would have studied in education would have been in certain silos. You would have either done engineering with a mechanical or a computers or an electronics or a civil, some specialization. So, that would have created its own silos. Okay, you learned about one particular part of the subject better than the other parts, right? The similar thing happens even in management students. And what they actually start off with is not what they end with at the end of the 3 years of their management studies. Okay, so these are different paradigms, and as a result of this kind of diverse influences that every individual, especially a student coming out of an academic institution, goes through, it is the 5 areas of development that we basically target or talk about from an holistic part of holistic situation, which includes the cerebral, which is basically the brain development or your knowledge, your thought process, your ability, your cognitive thinking, which is your ability to analyze and present data the way it is. Second is your emotional. You would have all heard about the term EQ, okay, today, which is used largely across organizations and schools and colleges across. EQ is something which is a rather nascent phenomena, because earlier we used to actually be considered about a topic called IQ. And IQ was nothing but intelligent quotient. So at that point of time, intelligence and the balance of intelligence, having that was uppermost, was most critical in a human being who ever wanted to be a professional. Not anymore. Today we are in an age where it is not intellectual capital, though we obviously insist that your intellectual capital still has to be absolutely top of the game. But in terms of attitude, aptitude, ability to scale up, ability to look beyond, we find a women play a much larger and very, very diversified role in this. They are able to take to the new reality much better. And the second one is the emotional balance that we talk about, or the emotional quotient that we talk about, is something which is far more pronounced, okay, in the fairer sex, though even men are doing a very good job of it today. And this is important because in the corporate world, as well as otherwise, whether it's at your homes or anywhere else, emotional quotient or emotional well being of a person is absolutely critical for a healthy life and a successful corporate career. Okay, so emotional. Third is physical, which means you obviously don't want to get into a progression where you might have a risk of life, or you might actually have a risk of any kind of injuries, because everybody at some age or the other starts thinking, what is in it for me? Have I had enough? Can I go on without getting into the race again? So these are the different kinds of questions that we often have to ask ourselves, which is why physical well-being, or the ability to take the stress, the strain, okay, sheer physical strength, that also has for the first time has emerged as an important consideration. The fourth very important concept, just like the second one, while we started off with IQ, we moved into EQ, and today what we hear is SQ, which is the social quotient, which means not only do I need to be intelligent, not only do I need to know how to balance situation and keep my emotions absolutely at a very, very stable state situation, but I also need to be socially acceptable, which means that I need to be on Instagram. I definitely need to be chatting on Twitter, or I need to at least know how Facebook and LinkedIn operates. It's a different matter that because LinkedIn is more or less designed to be a corporate website, a lot of students initially never used to visit that, but today I find number of students right from the start of their course curriculum gets enrolled into these areas because they've learned the mark. उनको भी पता चल गया है that this is a place where, without ruffling anybody and with some members of the family who are good to me, I can actually go out and do something without both parents shouting on me because they have to accept what I've got now. Okay, so that's cleverness, and that's also very important social media, because she can use it if she wants. One punch on her phone, she works with Hindustan Times. And one punch, and everything that you do wrong on social media gets blown up today. I think you know that very well. So today it's magnificent, and I like it as a trend that LinkedIn, apart from having so many of us as corporate professionals floating about there's a large number of even students and corporate and student aspirants, student position holders in different organizations and institutes. They also have made their presence felt, and it's very interesting to see the kind of dialogue that has started to happen in this particular social media. And that is what I call development. Development is not static. Development is not what is written in the book, but development is something which is out there, which is happening as the times move, which is happening as society evolves, which is happening as the economy takes off, the polity changes, everything changes around you, and you also move with it in order to inculcate those influences in making yourself a much more robust and comprehensive personality. Last but not the least, the word is spiritual. It's not religious, but it's spiritual. um, I don't attach any importance to being religious in the professional front. It's something which we don't really actively incorporate, because religion is a very, very personal phenomena. It's a very personal feeling. Okay, your equation with God. It's your way of looking at Him. It's my way of looking at Him. It could be very different from each other and yet absolutely hold good in one particular place. But we don't need to bring that in because That is not what really helps your professional demeanor. What really helps is your spiritual countenance. And by spirituality, I mean how calm are you? Do you have a meditative nature within you? You must have heard this, that today one of the important things in the corporate life that we talk about is mental health, mental well-being. And that is because tremendously there is a stress and strain that is available in the corporate zone. We hear youngsters undergoing burnout. We hear youngsters undergoing nervous breakdowns, and that's because the tremendously high expectations in terms of delivery and execution and numbers and pressures. Now, if you have to deal with pressures such as those, and nobody is going to listen to you if you ask for, taking away some of those pressures, because they'll say it comes as a package deal. As a matter of fact, what you can do is, despite the stresses and strains around you, go find out areas where you can invest in a certain amount of activity which actually gives you a peace of mind. Because it is obvious that when a human being has peace of mind in place, it is only then that he or she can give the best. Okay, as a result, development has to touch every single aspect of all these five that I have talked about, which is your brain, your emotional angle, your physicality, your social status, and ultimately your spiritual belief. And wherever and whenever I found that in an individual, each of these are touched and each of these are pronounced, those people go a long way in charting out tremendously successful careers for themselves. So, friends, you must understand that when we talk about development, career and professional development, we're talking about all these five areas, which is the holistic way of looking at development and not piecemeal. And it is important that while in some people the cerebral activity may be higher, in some other people the physical activity could be higher, in some the spiritual could be higher. There is nothing wrong. Everybody has their own threshold levels and everybody has their own ways of adapting to a second vocation, but we all have to respect it. So, moving ahead from what are areas of development, let's talk about how do you focus on personal development. Because let's understand one thing, we are at the end of the day an individual human being. Even before we move into whether we enter a classroom or whether we enter into a office or whether we go and speak to a social gathering in a village trying to do our jobs, we at the end of the day are individual human beings first. And as the human being, we need to do some things ourselves at a personal level so that we are able to put this whole cart of development in front of us. It cannot be putting the horse in front of the cart. We cannot think of progression on the professional side, on the corporate side, without actually having progression in self. Because it is only when your thinking process gets broader and the hug that everybody comes and gives you is genuine, we need to be clear that we have to prepare ourselves for the worst. And that is exactly what we talk about when you say, how do you focus on personal development? So let's look at what goes into it. What are the questions that we need to ask ourselves in order to make sure that we are doing enough to capture the attention of the other person as well as staying relevant in the times? We talk about imagine yourself in the future. So, one of the first things that you need to do is always be futuristic with a vision. Never live in the past because that's absolutely it's absolutely unhealthy and non value added. Also limit your time in thinking about what's happening to you in the present, because the present is already something which is going by every day until the time everything finishes off, because you can't abrogate your responsibility. Till such time you only have the opportunities of these kind of vagaries but not doing anything yourself. So one of the things that we need to understand is we have to start looking at our future from a futuristic perspective, and not just what happens to me day after tomorrow. Second, figure out where to start. Now, we're talking about matrimony, we're talking about marriage here, possible. And as a result of which, there are so many phases of life that an individual goes through. And that is where you need to ask yourself that where do I want to start? Do I want to be a corporate person? Do I want to be a careerist? Do I want to be a professional? Because it is not necessary, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, that everybody who passes out from a management school, or who passes out from an engineering college necessarily becomes a professional. That's not correct. There are many, okay, whether it's men or whether it's women, who actually don't go into the stated path and move out into very, very lateral kind of professions, which one wouldn't think they would actually be going for. So there are a lot of dichotomies which are there, which if we study, we will realize that there is much more to it than just a kind of a laundry list which talks about how we can develop ourselves. That's when the focus of theory also comes in from the other side. The third thing we have to know is check in with yourself regularly, which means that at every step, whatever you do, whether it's an activity, whether it's participating in some event, whether it's just thinking through things, you have to always, always listen to your voice. It's important because who will listen to you if you don't have the power to listen to yourself? Yourself should come first. You should know how to love yourself. Because once you know and you give respect to yourself, everybody else around you will also start doing so because they will find merit in your being. Fourth, be all about that. No, talk to yourself in a caring way. Now, this is something which is an absolute brilliant therapy that we talk about, and that's nothing but self talk. Now, we have understood in life that it's a good thing to have people around you with whom you can actually converse, but they can also bring, in this current situation, certain important things have surfaced, which doesn't just tell us that there could be times when we find ourselves very lonely, very alone in this world, but we also need to be very careful about having the locus of control within ourselves, which means that the ability to control a situation around me should stay with me. And therefore, I have to keep talking to myself to ensure that these small bites and these small little gyans are actually accepted properly. Because if you punch in some of these methods that I'm talking to you about, you'll realize you will be a much more sorted person tomorrow when it comes to taking calls on the professional area or creating a career for yourself. Be all about that daily journey. So it's not just about sporadic victories here or one set of talia there. It just doesn't happen like that. If you are having success and if you are wanting to become a part of that success, then it should be on a daily basis. You not only have to create system whereby that magic of that success needs to be highlighted, but you also have to create an environment. Hello. So, but you also have to create an environment where not only you, but everybody else are
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
okay. Thank you. So they are also able to see exactly how they fit in. Therefore, it's important that everything that happens to you on a daily basis is something that you actually keep stakes on. A little diary in the corner or a little notepad where you keep writing down the key points of that day and also some things which you feel, which you know you will actually apply tomorrow. Those things need to be written down so that there is no focus being diluted. Be specific. So that's another point which is taken from the fifth one itself, that when you are direct and when you are absolutely proper, you're also automatically ground. So the next one is call in a friend. Sometimes you need a shoulder. Sometimes you need a pair of ears. Sometimes you need another brain in order to conclusively prove that not only am I going by my opinion alone, but when it comes to brass tacks, I may also be in a position to actually follow some friend or some guide or some philosopher. By friend here, we don't mean a same age peer group friend. It could be anybody. Friend is a generic term here, but somebody who can influence your thought process, somebody whom you probably keen a dad, is very keen for a dad if you don't have one. But then, do you have the ability for our society to stand and say that no, I want this. I want this even if it is not a norm. But if you want to do it, it's good that you get some friends around, you create a movement around, and who knows, tomorrow you could be actually doing a great amount of service to a lot of girls, to not only this palace but many palaces in Rajasthan and other countries of the and other cities of this country where these practices continue to survive. The next one, consider how you will reach your goals. So it's not just enough to know what your goals are, but you have to also prepare yourself to reach for those goals. It's definitely not enough to say, I want to reach the moon, or it's definitely not enough to say, I want to move around in an Earth's orbit. She did everything, but what was she left with? Instead, I feel that, sometimes when you know how you want to reach your goals and you leave other things aside and you don't get digressed, that's the time when you actually yield maximum results. Very, very interesting. So, the other important point is something which we always forget to do, which is how do we qualify success? Is it something which is huge in numbers, or whether it's something where there has to be a marriage, or there has to be a great ceremony which has a title to it? No, raita was primarily made in order to lower down the khara masala, or the hard spices that went into the muttons and the biryanis and all of that. That was the genesis of the Hulabari. So, one of the things that you need to understand is you have to celebrate your success in large ways. And those successes do not need to be large. The successes may be small, but starting with small, when you keep building up the momentum of celebrations, you yourself will realize that your personality is shining, your professional development is going to talk about itself. People will notice you as somebody who's not just self-centered, but he believes or she believes in actually doing things in a way so that there is a way of success, and the locus of control is also within her hand. As a matter of fact, that brilliant pattern, you ultimately create an aura of positivity around you. So every success creates celebration of every success creates an aura around you, where the presidency, where beautiful people, all of them come, all of them meet, all of them celebrate along with you. Last but not the least, do more of what you enjoy, which is, something which we have forgotten to do. We've become such models, or we've become such structures of the current kind of generic organizations that we have, that we actually forget that there is a life beyond that. And I may actually be interested in doing something entirely different. And remember, it's a process. It is not that any one of these things can happen on their own. It is not that I can do two bowls and three badams here and there, because it doesn't help. If you help properly, if you want, because you remember, this will become a part of the process, and therefore you need to start enjoying it and also making it seal proof. These are some of the ways you focus on your personal development. Now, after personal, what is the next most important thing that we need to look up, which is exactly what our topic also says, that what are the most critical examples of professional department? Now, professional development. Now, one of the things I want to make very clear up front is that a lot of people feel that, it is no big deal working in a corporate, because once you're a management graduate, or once you would have seen, those higher echelons of academics meshing in with the crowd or doing something interesting within a large ocean of people in an organization is not going to be difficult. It may have its own sort of soft spots in the morning, but nothing big than that. While that was a relief in itself, I couldn't help but, check that, are we as a society, are we as the parents of children who are fast moving into that Gen Next, which is going to actually take over all the reins of the country, are we moving together in the right path? Are we able to share the right time and right opportunity with our children? Because most of the time we are both working. So that is an important criteria which we need to sort of keep in mind, because every time they come, it's okay. They understand and they realize that you have to move around with it, and to move around you have to do a little shaking up. When you talk about professional development, it is very different from personal development. Professional development is not about asking yourself. Professional development is not about looking at what motivates you and how you convert that into positive energy. Professional development is a little different from just doing what you want to do, what you like to do more, as we just saw in the previous slide. Professional development is putting good use your current time to learning and upskilling yourself in doing something extra. So we are talking about continuing education. I go back to my example of many of my young friends who are my mentees, and a couple of them actually reached out to say that since we don't have internships during this period, or even after we have internship, but those internships are now, from home. We're doing the internships from home. What else can we do? Is there anything else we can do during this time so that we can give our personality or our ability to sort of fight with the rest of the world, in a different manner? Can we lend an edge to ourselves? I told them continuing education today. What, 5 years back, each one of us in our capacity as chief HR officer and HR leads, who are changing the terrain of work in the country, we took great pride in saying that artificial intelligence is just around the corner, and digital HR has to happen, because without these two, the functions, each respective functions, will not scale up to the level where they have to. So whether it was HR, or whether it was marketing, or whether it was IT, whether it was production, everyone had to move to that next level, which meant that every person who would now come into the organization to actually lead because of the change circumstances would have to be this much higher in execution. We'll obviously have to bring very, very solid credentials behind it. So this was the kind of feeling that I had, on account of which, I feel that continuing education is perhaps the first important aspect where you can pick up courses. There is online education today, which that discussions that we used to have 5 years back, and you we beat around the bush about artificial intelligence and digital learning. Today we are finding that thanks to the pandemic, in one shot, the same has been brought into place. Today, remote working as well as home working, which is basically staying away from parents and carving out a situation for themselves. Now, we found that this is terribly on the high. People are breaking bonds, people are coming together, people are trying to see whether they can do things for themselves. But in that, what is important is we are losing focus on some of the things which are very, very critical for your professional development. So, continuing education, friends, please understand, while we suffer through the period that we are, while we keep thinking about when we get back into the office situation, or when are things going to be absolutely the new normal, I would suggest that each one goes through their curriculums and identifies what are the courses they can do, he or she can do, so that there is an extra limb, there is obviously an extra try for someone like him. The second important thing is participation in professional organizations. So we have in colleges and schools, we participate in large number of policy making bodies. We take part in debates and declarations in large number of affiliate institutions. The embassies and the consulates run a large number of debate competitions, etc. I keep getting those mailers, and I keep sort of passing them on to people who are direly in need of wanting to cultivate this area. So there are people who I know who are successfully today working with the social sector, or they are associated in some form, in partial form, with at least some of the knowledge working communities amongst volunteers, and they are openly going out and actually enhancing the scope of their work. Third, research. Now, what is research? Research is nothing simple. It just is your output, which primarily goes after you have received input from different sources and completely dissected it in order to come up with an answer. Okay, so research is important because research helps your personality develop much more wide and better, because earlier to research you may actually have gained only academic knowledge in the classroom, as we spoke about. But with research, which is going to be your own sort of initiation, you will go beyond the classroom. You will start shining as someone who has a lot of mental who has tremendous amount of acumen and who are very much willing to put all that together in order to come up with better and better impetus and better figures for themselves, improve job performance. Now some of you could actually be in a job situation. As I said, some of you could be in a job situation, some of you could be in between jobs.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you in between. Somebody has messaged that can you speak in Hindi?
Acha, in Hindi.
Yeah. So I would request if all of you are comfortable with Hindi, please say yes or no in chat box quickly. Kiran says no. Request everybody to please speak so that we can take a decision that either ma'am should speak in Hindi or English.
And I must say here, Shivkani, that even if I speak in Hindi, there will be some terms which I will anyway have to use in English.
Yeah, that is agreeable, ma'am. I the intention was कि in case the crucial things if you can highlight in Hindi as well, so maybe
Sure,
that
sure, sure.
participant will
Absolutely.
help. Yeah, please.
So, do we have a consensus? Do we have a mix?
So people are saying more for English,
They are saying,
English,
okay, so people are actually saying English more.
English, and only one or two few are for Hindi. So what we can do is the crux or the crucial things you can speak in Hindi and English both.
Okay, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good, and thank you. I mean, I wish you had already, friends, you should say this right up front because तब क्या होता है कि इतने सारे slides हमने जो cover कर लिए हैं और जितनी बातें मैंने इंग्लिश में समझाई वही चीज को मैं एकदम संक्षेप में मैं थोड़ा सा हिंदी में भी उसको समझा सकती थी बट नाउ टू गो बैक एट द प्रेजेंटेशन वो फ्लो एकदम टूट जाएगा सो इट विल बी अ लिटिल डिफिकल्ट टू एक्चुअली गो बैक टू द प्रेजेंटेशन एंड स्टार्ट फ्रॉम स्क्रैच सो यहाँ से आगे wherever there are important things that I can probably reinforce in Hindi, I will do that. I hope that's going to be acceptable to everybody. Okay, thank you. So we're talking about professional development, and we were talking about what you need to do besides the personal part in order to create that progression for yourself, जिससे आपकी जो करियर है उसमें जल्दी तरक्की आए. You need to concretize your situation in such a manner ताकि whatever you are doing, whether it's the search for a job, whether it's the campus that you have agreed for with the company, or whether you have a job already happening with you, any position that you're in, you actually start performing that better, so that that professional development of yours comes into the limelight and the management is able to actually look at it. What happens in as a result? What happens is basically an increase in your roles and responsibilities, and that automatically becomes a part of your next stage or next level professional development. So it is important and interesting to see here that one feeds into the other. जैसे ही आप नौकरी में या कहीं भी पढ़ाई में कहीं भी आप अच्छा करने लगे और आप बेहतर होते जाएं, उससे क्या होगा, आगे जाके आपको और भी जिम्मेदारी दी जाएगी, and you will start attaching and you'll start working differently, so that one part of your diligence actually leads to the other part. Next is approaches to professional development, which means that apart from just the classroom coaching or apart from just the knowledge that you've gained in your colleges, it is also important to look at what else can I study, so that, or what else can I gather knowledge about, which will give me that little edge vis-a-vis anybody else, okay, who is also there asking for those kind of jobs. For instance, I'll give you an example. A lot of people who don't manage to do their chartered accountancy, okay, land up doing either a financial analyst course or something which is related to any kind of a finance auditing and accounting job. But there are still people who feel that even if I have not been able to do the chartered accountancy and I did not really qualify, can I at least look at some of the papers? Can I look at some of the research which has gone in, so that even by reading case studies, okay, which I could not do because I couldn't pass the subject. But today, who stops me from reading those cases? Because once I've read the cases, it becomes very easy for me to identify exactly what is the approach that I need to take. So this is an important quality that everybody needs to have in mind. The next one is skill based training, and this anyway doesn't require too much of explanation. आप कितनी भी पढ़ाई कर ले अपने इंस्टीट्यूट में, कॉलेजेस में, आपको ट्रेनिंग्स आपकी जिंदगी भर ट्रेनिंग्स आपको और सिखाता जाएगा. आई एम अ स्टॉन्च बिलीवर दैट लर्निंग नेवर एंड्स. लर्निंग की जिस दिन मौत हो गई, जब आपकी लर्निंग एक्चुअली खत्म हो जाए, तो आपकी मौत हो जाती है. इट्स ऑलमोस्ट लाइक यू आर डेड, because you would have reached a plateau, you would have reached just absolute stagnation in terms of what's new and what else we can do. But then that's quite some time away. When we discuss these things, we also talk about the fact that let's not talk about what can happen tomorrow or what can happen 7 years down the line or 15 years down the line. Let's understand that in today's competitive market, where demand is not being stripped and supply is outsmarting it, we need to have those extra special qualifications or extra special earmarks on us so that we become desirable candidates wherever required. And finally, job assignments. It's important you pick up job assignments with a very clear mind. Sorry. There are jobs and there are jobs and there are more jobs. बहुत नौकरियां हैं. But it is not necessary that every job fits your attitude, every job be to your liking. Therefore, just like an organization does a lot of due diligence, just if you can just excuse me for a minute, I'll just get a little water. Sorry about that. So I was just saying that just like organizations do their due diligence and do a lot of examining the candidature, similarly, as job aspirants, it becomes a responsibility for you as well as anybody else to also do your due diligence with respect to the organization that you would like to work for. That's not difficult. Every organization which is a registered company will have its own balance sheets, will have its own annual reports. I would suggest that today's generation is such a vibrant generation. They know so much. They're so full of ideas and they are definitely five notches ahead of what we used to be in those days. Please make good use of that intellectual acumen that you have and that business knowledge that you have. If you are looking for jobs, make sure that that is the job where you will be able to do justice, just like you will also be adding value to the organization. So it has to be a win-win, and therefore a part of your professional development and career progression will always come from whether you picked the right job, whether you did enough due diligence at the end of the day to make sure that the opportunity that you're picking up is not just because the pay is good and the brand is very large, but also because the role that was being offered to you was exciting, or the place of work was interesting, or the whole curriculum, or the job itself, the way it was designed, was something which was up to your heart. So when we look at critical examples of professional development as to what you need to do in order to step ahead in the corporate world with an advantage to yourself, these are the continuous ones that you need to attack. You need to continue your education in some way or the other. You need to participate in professional organizations. You need to do a bit of research, which means that everything that you go in for, you need to know a little more about it so that you're an enriched person. You need to improve your job performances, because the minute you do that, your professional development automatically takes place and you get an enhancement in your roles and responsibilities. At the same time, you must keep your eyes open. in terms of professional developments which is coming your way. You need to undergo trainings, you need to be abreast of every new development that is there in the market. And finally, every job that you go in for needs to be something which is a win-win for you, where you would have done an equal amount of due diligence just like the organization would have done for you. Moving on, so we look at what could be. Now this is an example, and this is just to make life simple आपके लिए, थोड़ा सा आसान करने के लिए, कि अभी तक जो चीजें हमने कही कि भाई हमें अगर अपनी प्रोफेशनल डेवलपमेंट में ध्यान देनी चाहिए, अगर हमें उसको आगे लेके जाना चाहिए, तो हमें क्या करना चाहिए. We need to start with self. We need to look at, as a human being, what are the areas that we need to choose upon, and then we need to look at what are the professional developments that we need to do. वो अगर हम जान जाएं, उसी थियोरी को अगर हम प्रैक्टिकली अप्लाई करने लगे, तो वो इस तरीके से हम देख सकते हैं that we can define a road map for ourselves. We can define what is known as a charter. Okay, charter. हाँ, जो जो एक बताते हैं ना, एक एक it's an agreement with self. Okay, अपने लिए एक हम प्लान बना सकते हैं. Let's say it's an example कि 2021 के लिए there are 8 professional development goals that I would not like to work towards, which means I have a 1 year period, a little less than a 1 year period, and in that period I need to attack these important skills. Because if I start attacking and I'm able to at least reach anything between 70 and a 90% in anyone, in most of them, then I would be a far more accomplished and a far more competent person, okay, by the close of 2021. So these very ambitious programs that we undertake are not the buzzwords or the fashion statements for anybody. This is hard work. This is a commitment that you make to yourself, that at the end of this 12-month period or 14 months or 18 months, whatever period you take for yourself, when you put a plan, it's almost like you're benchmarking yourself. You're telling yourself that I'm at this level, but by this time, I promise to be at that level. And there is a consequence, because that's your plan. Nobody from outside has come and actually told you that you need to do this. So you've actually stuck your neck out. जब आपने neck out कर ही लिया, तब अगर उसको साकार नहीं कर सकते हैं, then it becomes a humiliation. Therefore, it's important that when you actually make these decisions, it is important to actually make sure that when I have a plan for myself, I will give my 110%, not just 100%, 110% to go out and match with it. So, what does my, let's say, I mean, this is, I'm saying my, but it could be any one of us. What does my professional development goal chart look like? Learn a new skill. So, कोई तो स्किल मुझे है, सो आई चूज, लेट्स से आज इंटरनेट पे इतने सारे ओपन लर्निंग कोर्सेज है, whether it's Coursera, whether it's Udemy, itne sare Byju's, there are so many places which are offering digital learning for you, primarily because not only the pandemic, but it's because the marketplace is getting cluttered. कहीं ना कहीं आपको सुकून में बैठ के पढ़ने का भी वक्त देना चाहिए, नहीं तो आप ऑफिस में आके काम के बीच में तो कर नहीं पाते हैं ना. So it's important that we don't just that is why I'm saying that you don't just create a plan, make sure that you apply it. So it has to be realistic. So I tell myself कि मुझे एक skill जरूर अपनाना है. It could be anything. I could choose that I want to get into digital marketing. I am an HR person. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't know much about digital marketing, but it's a new line which has come. I said, doesn't matter. For the little cost that there is, I would rather go through it because it sounds interesting. And at some point or the other, it can actually be looked at as an additional skill for me. So another organization which might be wanting to hire me will look at it as an advantage, if not in this one. The next one, I have to start networking. So, what did I say right at the start? That there used to be a time when social media was not something which students' community actually really, capitalized. They were hesitant, especially when it came to LinkedIn, and everybody had this pretension in their minds that अगर हम में से कोई LinkedIn पे दिख जाए, so we will be tried as trying to be too smart. It is not going to be liked by anybody in the team. Forget the captain. Now, those were kind of statements which were made without any validity. So I find that once you make these plans, you also start backing it up with presence, your presence in every possible area, so that your name doesn't vanish, your ways of polishing yourself doesn't vanish, and everybody knows you when the time comes. Apart from networking, read more. Now, ये मुझे personally बहुत बुरा लगता है, and this I have a complaint. ये मेरी कंप्लेन है आपके लिए, टू द यंग जनरेशन। आप लोग पढ़ते नहीं हैं, आप सच में पढ़ते नहीं हैं। और ये मैं क्लासरूम बुक्स की बात नहीं कर रही हूँ। आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट बुक्स विच आर द कोर्स बुक्स। आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट comics. I'm not talking about Instagram feed. I'm not talking about Facebook. मैं इनके बारे में नहीं बात कर रही हूँ। आप ये बहुत खूबी से पढ़ लेते हैं, बिकॉज ये एक पहला वाला जो स्कूल का किताब है वो तो आपको पढ़ना ही पड़ता है, और दूसरी वाली जो सोशल मीडिया, मिडनाइट का मूवी, ये सब चीजें जो होती हैं, ये इसमें मुझे थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम है। बट एटलीस्ट बिकॉज देयर इज नथिंग टू डू नाउ, कुछ some things have to be made available, and I feel that reading is something which enhances the personality of a person by miles. I have an 18-year-old daughter. I continuously tell her that it's good what you read on Instagram or what you read elsewhere, but how many classics have you read? How much of fiction have you read? What kind of fiction do you like? Okay, what is the comprehensive history? Mahabharat, महाभारत, रामायण, बाइबल, उसमें क्या लिखा है, she knows by heart. But then when I ask her that, do you know Rapunzel, or do you know actually all the Shakespearean novels and what actually the background theories of each one of them were, because they were brilliant, candidates. No, she had no idea, and I felt ashamed because without reading, without understanding more about our cultures, our authors, where their excitement is coming from, where their emphasis is coming from. Because later, for instance, I found out that the same Dr. Sam, the same person who had come and met me, they were also very interested to find out, what more world language that I've run, what more world knowledge that I have. Now it is not enough just to know only about your country, but also about everything else. And the more you read, the more your horizon expands, the more your exposure becomes. And please understand, exposure can only be good. It helps you to form your ideologies in a progressive manner. Yes, some people are not good, but then we are trying our best to take care of the some people. So next is improve your work life balance. ये अगर आप काम कर रहे हो, already you have started working, then this becomes very very important, because uh, otherwise it can become very painful for you to continue with the family. Because ये चीजें एक बार चिढ़ मचती हैं, या इसमें अगर कभी भी कोई चिढ़ आ जाती है, तो ये मेंट करना बड़ा मुश्किल होता है। देयरफॉर इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट दैट आपके प्रोफेशनल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स के अंतर्गत ये जो वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस है ना, थोड़ा कम भी क्यों ना हो इम्पोर्टेंस और या वेटेज, लेकिन फिर भी होना बहुत जरूरी है। Challenge yourself. Challenging myself, only if I can take risks, only if I can challenge myself and say yes, I'll achieve out of this, तभी जाके आप यू विल गिव दैट कटिंग एज। एक बार बोले थे ना कि किलर इंस्टिंक्ट नहीं होने से काम नहीं होता, कॉटेज कॉटेज में होता है, बट यू नीड टू मास्टर दैट। सो यू हैव टू चैलेंज योरसेल्फ, वर्क एंड राइट साइड बाय साइड। इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट टू से दैट वर्क ऑन योर वीकनेसेस। अगर चैलेंज कर रहे हैं अपने आप को ताकि आप बड़े से बड़े खतरा या रिस्क उठा सके, एट द सेम टाइम आपके वीकनेसेस को भी आपको अपनाना है और उस पर काम करना है, ताकि आप चैलेंज लेने गए तो वो वीकनेस आपको नीचे उतार दे। इसलिए दोनों ही एक साथ चलना चाहिए, बोथ ऑफ देम हैव टू गो टुगेदर। Then getting organized, it's important. It's very very important, because otherwise you will always be perceived as a scattered brain. You'll always be perceived as somebody who doesn't know how to take care of papers, and that's not a very respectable thing to hear. Because angry man, when you become an angry man, you need to smile and behave like an angry man. That's what the motto in life is. Okay, so getting organized and communicating better, last but not the least, आपकी communication is the first thing that anybody gets struck. For instance, आप जब किसी को मेल भी लिखते हैं, when you write a mail to somebody and you haven't met that person also, that mail creates the first outlook or the first impression about you out there to the other person. Similarly, when you're on a call, the person on the other side may not know how you look, may not even understand, may not even haven't got familiar with me. But at the same time, after listening to me somewhere, that person has made a mental makeup. So it's important that you communicate better, because communication is a skill which जो हमने कहा था कि बड़े बड़ों को sounds difficult but eminently useful. So these are the total laundry list of, let's say, 8 professional development goals that I think I would like to adopt for 2021 if I were in your space. Now, it could be a combination of these and some more for some others. It could be a completely new combination for many of you on the other side, or it could be something. Some people might even think, oh, it reads very well. I'm going to adapt this only. I don't need to work extra or anything. So this is important, that while you think about your professional development, सिर्फ डेवलपमेंट के बारे में सोचना जरूरी नहीं है, उसकी एग्जीक्यूशन के लिए, उसको एक्चुअली लागू होने के लिए आप अपने लिए एक प्लान भी बनाएं. Only after that you shall actually have a real program on your hand which is genuine and achievable. Next, we go to what is known as what are the key areas of professional development today. So, हम किस चीज की बात कर रहे हैं? We're talking about flexibility. So, professional development की अगर कुछ criteria, कुछ competence हम देखना चाहें, उसमें these are the skills which are very very critical today. A, flexibility. Second, communication skills. Third, conflict resolution or tactfulness, which comes out of work ethic. Fourth, leadership skills. Fifth, organizational skills. Sixth, creativity skills. And last but not the least, stress management. So, while we just some slides back, we spoke about क्या क्या चीजें हमें प्रोफेशनल एंड पर्सनल डेवलपमेंट के लिए क्या 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 करना चाहिए. पर्सनल स्पेस में हमें अपने से बात करना चाहिए, क्लैरिटी लानी चाहिए. प्रोफेशनल स्पेस में वी नीड टू बी वेरी केयरफुल बिकॉज मनी इज वेरी लिमिटेड बट द आस्क इज लार्ज एंड हाउ वी गेट इट इज व्हाट इज गोइंग टू बी इंपॉर्टेंट. These are the important प्रोफेशनल स्किल्स जो अपनाने से वही चीजें जिसके बारे में हमने बात की, all those that we spoke about, those professional development areas that we talked about, that is attending coursework, going and presenting in other organizations, also looking at performing better, वो चीजें तभी हो पाएगी जब ये professional skills आप में हो. So this is an important list. Please make a note of it. These are important skills to have. Flexibility talks about your ability to fit into different situations. Communication skills, we all know. Conflict resolution is your ability to actually move out of difficult situations with tact and with proper usage. Leadership skills is your ability to actually lead people to fulfilling a task in the right manner. Organizational skills will talk about how well in an organization you are able to sink in and move and align along with it. Creativity skills obviously talks about your left brain and how you operate with it. And finally, stress management, because आजकल किसी भी जॉब में स्ट्रेस बहुत है. Now, what are the different mediums of professional development? हमने सुन तो लिया कि professional development में क्या क्या होना चाहिए, क्या क्या हमें करना चाहिए. But how do we go about that? So we look at taught courses. A common form of professional development is taught courses, which means जैसे हमने कहा कि सीए ना कर पाए लेकिन हमने चार्टर्ड फाइनेंशियल एनालिसिस की कोर्स कर ली. ह्यूमन रिसोर्स में कर पाए लेकिन हमने ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बिहेवियर पे एक छोटी मोटी हमने डिग्री कर ली. That becomes taught courses. So do not limit your professional development to only that one set of knowledge that you have, but you have to continuously learn and keep your learning curve alive. And that's why you have to keep learning through these taught courses. Self-study courses. So self-study courses can comprise anything from independent reading to more advanced online activities. Seminars, workshops, networks, conferences, job shadowing, staff mobility. So I think I will not explain the top ones because we all know what seminars and workshops and networks are. But what is job shadowing? Job shadowing is a fascinating concept where I remember when I was in Kony, the world's largest travel company, as the CHRO, around 5 years back, 5 or 6 years back. I had two ladies from one of the largest business schools in the country come over during their summer vacations, and they were very clear that they did not want to do any internship. Even their even their school principal who spoke to me also talked about a very interesting project wherein none of the children were going to actually work with the manager. It was not that somebody will sit and they'll do work together. They were both supposed to do independent work, completely independent work, but by shadowing each other, which means that both the ladies would come, they would spend time with me as the leader, and they would continuously observe my leadership traits, pick those up, learn them, at the same time disseminating it between the two of them so that they both knew what had actually come and hit her. And in return, I also came to know about that. Okay, so job shadowing, very interesting and very, very important medium of professional development. Staff mobility, which means that you don't remain restricted into one area, but you actually have the ability to move around in different areas, which gives you a very high proportion of visibility. Okay, next we finally talk about, and we are going towards the end of it, overall career goal examples for reference. Now, one of you may say, I want to improve my networking skills. I want to switch my career to get into a better space. One of you may say, I'm going to start my own business. I want to be an entrepreneur. So there are overall career goals. And those career goals are your reference points. Each one of you ultimately has an end objective. It may not be fulfilled today because you're on a scale, you're climbing it, you'll climb slow and steady. After a point, you may actually choose to move out and take on something else. So now that those things are choices that you exercise. But one of the things which is interesting is I like the fact that an organization has put them on the main table, and they're talking about starting own business. So the unicorns, the startups, India is full of startups. Now these are success stories, and that has happened because of these kind of career goal examples. Getting a promotion, becoming an expert in your field, assuming a leadership position, uh, and of course Marcus, who was killed in the raid. So therefore, we are talking about getting a promotion, becoming an expert in your field, assuming a leadership position, earning a degree or certificate, and closing more sales. So as you can see, each one of them is very varied. They're very different from each other. ओके, किसी ने सेल्स में माहिर होना है, किसी को कोई सर्टिफिकेशन करना है, किसी ने लीडर बननी है, तो कोई सब्जेक्ट मैटर एक्सपर्ट बन के रह जानी चाहती, because each one of us were fascinated. This whole place looks fascinating even now. Okay, so we were talking about the career goal examples, and these are some of the interesting career goal aspirations that most of today's generation are looking for. This has actually been taken after a study across um, 13 cities in India. Even if there were three participants, in some areas, so there are no people only. But one of the things that we found out of those surveys is that these are, in today's generation, some of the top career goal aspirations, and all the professional development that we want to do has to dovetail into this. This is important, and this we need to keep in mind while we go along. Finally, the direction, therefore, get training. So, attend a workshop, take a course, read an article or book, observe someone who excels at the skill. Plenty of options there. So, becoming a mentor or I becoming a mentee, etc., etc. The second important area is obviously the practice of it. So once you get the training, it shouldn't die a natural death. After being trained, it's important for you to put it into practice. And that practice is something which has to be repeated over and over again till it becomes part of your habit. And that's what the understanding was since yesterday. Okay. Now, therefore, these are the directions that we have to take, because we've now spoken about the developmental areas, we've spoken about what aspirations we have, we've also spoken about the skills we need to bring, and how do we inculcate? We get trained into it. By training, we mean we can go multiple ways. We can read, we can become a mentee to somebody, we can actually have a certification for ourselves. And once we do that, the certificates will obviously be awarded, and you have to keep practicing. You have to keep practicing the skills that you've picked up, and so that they don't die a natural death. And some of these areas will ultimately, and by doing this and by soliciting feedback, now that's again very important, reinforcement of your ability okay, to continuously practice and master a particular skill will obviously depend on how open you are to critique, how open you are to positive criticism, how openly you accept any kind of difference of opinion and try and bring about those improvements into their own areas of work. This is one place where, I mean, women have to be really, really strong and get what they want in the first go itself. So therefore, it is this is the direction which finally each one of us have to take, so that we get trained, we do practice, we get feedback, and the loop keeps getting repeated, so that finally we become people who have a good repertoire of skills below us, who are able to demonstrate enough professional competence, enough career aspirations within ourselves to catch the news, to catch the people, in order to make sure that we are on the right track. So that was really my presentation on this particular thing on development, that is career and professional development. I basically wanted to really talk about how these particular aspects of development are not just important from a point of view of knowledge gathering. It's not just important for you to understand and inculcate those values on you, but it's also very, very important that you do understand that it's not a straight line, a linear path. It is not just acquiring an education that you get in colleges, but there is a lot of thought and a lot of process work that goes beyond just acquiring those degrees and those diplomas, to keep giving yourself that additional output, to keep polishing your competencies and your personality in such a manner that you become the chosen one in an already very, very constricted job market tomorrow. I'd like to end my part of the discourse with this, and if there are questions from anyone, I'd love to take them on. Thank you.
Awesome, great tips, ma'am. So, people, if we have any queries, either we can unmute ourselves and we can have, otherwise, please mention in the chat box. And ma'am will love to take your questions. I believe there would not be many questions, ma'am, because the PPT and the way you were explaining, so it itself was very explanatory. So
Thank you.
I can see in the audience there is one professor from Karnataka,
Okay.
uh, Dr. Jyoti.
Hello, Dr. Jyoti.
Dr. Jyoti Jain, would you like to speak something? I think she got disconnected or what? Let me see. So there is one question.
Mm.
Ma'am, can you please help us on how to convert LinkedIn connections into effective connections and build up the corporate relations?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question and a very relevant one, especially in today's age, because there is a saying, rather there is an understanding, and most people follow that particular track, that the more visible you are, the more present you are on these social media platforms, the more the chances and the opportunity for you to actually get noticed, and doors and avenues being open to you. Now, I have a slightly different take on this. I myself am a very, very active participant in the areas of social media, especially Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Not so much on Instagram, but I do follow Instagram, but I don't participate so much. But I do it primarily from the point of view of understanding how the youth, or how today's generation is actually approaching these platforms. One of the things which gave me tremendous pleasure was when I found the student body entering into LinkedIn and making good use of the professional medium that was available. But sooner or later, I found that the trend was degenerating into a repetitive demonstration of good morning thoughts, or some kind, some kind of cut and paste sort of articles from here and then putting it there, trying to sort of grab attention of senior bodies, and senior people, by making comments, and sometimes unwanted comments on posts and stuff like that, but completely unwarranted. My point is, you are yourself a repertoire of great skill and knowledge. Okay, you also know that there are platforms where senior level people are there, and that's a great opportunity for you to get noticed. But obviously, get noticed for the right reason, which means that if you are a person with, with about 24, 25 years of life behind you, you would have gathered tremendous amount of experiences for yourself. Why don't you showcase those experiences? Why don't you develop stories around them? Why don't you position yourself as a subject matter expert on the basis of those experiences that you've had, in such a manner that the person on the other side, whether it is the same person that you like, or whether there are others, they see a hook. They should be able to see a hook and identify you by somebody who's a little different from the clutter. They should be able to see and look and feel and hear you and say, oh man, this particular person, despite no great looks, no nothing, no shake, at least is a reservoir is a reservoir and a dome of literature. And if I'm able to go to him for even 5 minutes, I will be benefited from it. But that connect has to be built up over time. That connect does not really happen, by a miracle wand or by a magician's wand. And sometimes you have to be very sensitive to the mental capability of the person on the other side that is on these kind of social media platforms, because not everybody is receptive. Me, as a very senior person, may not, I'm giving an example, may not really want to get into that business of trying to socialize with students. I've done my bit. Now I'm out of it and I don't want to get back into it. But there could be others who are practicing exactly that. They would like to mix with the everybody else only for their own purpose and in a limited manner, and would at the drop of a hat go through this entire phenomena, because that's the state of mind that he or she is in. And irrespective of how much you try to reach out to such a person through any of these social media platforms, you will not be able to do so successfully. My other experience has been that it's not just social media. Social media is there, it's extremely good, you can make use of it in a very, very clever manner. But you have to take the dialogue beyond just social media. So even if you establish connect with a LinkedIn, it makes sense for you to then connect on an individual basis, on chat forms, on different ways, on call, if everything goes really well after that, and engage, so that whatever linkage you would have established, whatever little that you had established within that social media platform, you would then go on and cement it further through a second line of action. So that's how you'll be able to leverage any such connections on social media.
I hope this answers your question well, Prasun. So this question was from Prasun Kumar. He is an MBA student from Kolkata.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
So, ma'am, I would like to ask you that what mantra will you give to these students? Under current situation, understanding the kind of the opportunities coming up. What mantra will you give to these students?
um, by that you obviously mean the current tight situation, right? The little
Yes,
bit of
ma'am.
difficulties that we have out there. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation, no running away from it. More difficult because we suddenly are in a market space where I think the demand has been overtaken by the supply. And while the demand also is of a very different kind. So today many organizations are rolling back work to make things work from home. So remote working and working from home are fast becoming. the norms of working for now, as well as maybe a lot of it will stay even for the future. If that be so, then the current workforce has a little bit of a problem for themselves, because work from home does not always augment well. They may be from different geographies, and they may be trying to actually have employment in those geographies, but actually that doesn't happen, because every organization will therefore try, as a catchment pool, okay, the area where they are settled, that becomes their catchment pool in terms of the area of recruitment. So a lot of very meritorious students who would have otherwise qualified through campus or through other kind of placement mechanisms actually fall out and will lose that advantage. So that's one of the things which has become very, very difficult in the market. The second is, there is a palpable fear, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, there is a palpable fear of jobs not being there as many. And the headlines of the newspapers and the number of articles that are coming out are only reinforcing that value even further. My humble request to my young friends would be, please don't get unnerved. Okay, even if jobs are not going to be there for some time, for some limited time in the horizon, it's surely going to bounce back, because the economy actually follows a cycle of peaks and troughs. So this may be one of those troughs where a lot is happening, which is making things crash in the way. But look at the other side of it. We are also talking about the pandemic leading to a lot of new industries coming into the country. We're also talking about new businesses setting up houses. We're also talking about the manufacturing industry actually expanding, because because one of the things that we have realized because of the pandemic, transportation got affected, healthcare was badly abused. So many other factors have emerged in order to tell us that there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. Lot of work has to be put in place in order to make India a far more Atmanirbhar country. So if we want to get into that Atmanirbharta, then there is a lot of work that needs to be done. So my point is that अगर अभी नहीं तो शायद कुछ दिन बाद हो जाए, because we are all hoping that we are all going through difficult times. But at the end of the day, we still need an assurance कि भाई इतने बजे तक तो ये हो ही जाना चाहिए, right? So obviously that is important. And another thing that I would like my friends to bother about is, instead of sitting at home or and mopping themselves and being depressed and going through anxiety, a lot of my mentees are calling me up to say, ma'am, हमें बहुत anxiousness हो रही है, बहुत anxiety हो रही है, I don't know how to manage, I don't, रात को नींद नहीं आती, we don't get sleep. I mean, come on. If it was so simple to give up on life, how, what would it mean? I mean, my first question is, you just have one life, try and make the best out of it, and don't think of these moral issues ki patla hona padega ya bhagna padega. This does not matter. So at the end of the day, make use of the time which is there at your disposal in better ways. Get some of the things that we talked about in terms of your professional development, please put them in use, which is get online, registered for a course, do some of those courses. They are extraordinary. I am personally doing digital marketing course myself, okay, just because I want to understand a little more about the marketing dynamics, okay, away from my particular subject. So there are many of us who are trying to do this, and you must also do this if we do it at our age, because learning has no ceiling. The day you stop learning, you're dead, you're intellectually dead. So that's one big thing. And we were actually, I haven't, since it's a difficult situation. I don't want to simplify. I don't want to make it simplistic, but then I want to seriously tell people that start working on your lockdown bio. Bio is your profile. Okay, so you would have done a lot of activities earlier to the pandemic. Okay, where you had internships, where you went for college parties, you did multiple things, and that had become a part of your pre-pandemic bio, which means what did you do in that pre-pandemic period. Today, for this pandemic, you should develop a separate set of identity for yourself and call it the pandemic or the lockdown bio, which means what did I do in this period of 3 to 4 months or 5 months, as it's going to be, in my anvil, where I had so much of time. And I'm the same person with intellectual acumen. I research, I can understand figures well, I can write very well. Why didn't I look at it that way? It should have simply been a different matter altogether. Well, sometimes things happen which happened without any very logical kind of explanation. But this is what has happened, and finally, I think it's going to take some time.
I think you have given us a very useful tip, and the students will be benefited out of this. So, students, do we have any other query? Students, do we have any other query? I think we are good, ma'am. So the insights which you have given us are good to go, and the students really, I think, had a wonderful session. I am getting some feedbacks at the group also.
Thank you. Thank
So
you, Shifali. I think it was very, very interesting. This is a topic which is so close to my heart, and you know that because the troubles and tribulations that my young friends are having nowadays, the very little that we can do is to make them a little more conscious and give them that kind of courage that there is nothing that is lost and we are there. We are all there to support them through this particular period, and they should not lose heart. I think हम किसी तरीके से अगर उनको ये भरोसा दिलाएं एंड बाकी उनमें इतनी हिम्मत जुटाए कि वो खुद से मेहनत करके they do something for themselves, and so wherever required we do something together, that becomes a most win-win situation. So thank you, Shafali. I heartily I appreciate this gesture from you as well as HR Sampark. Thank you.
thank you so much, ma'am. Wonderful session, and thank you, audience, for joining us today. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.